Apple is acutely aware of the significance of the Chinese market. Although headquartered in the United States, nearly 95% of Apple's consumer electronics, including iPhones and AirPods, are manufactured in mainland China. Over the past 3 decades, Apple has established an extensive supply chain network in China, integrating over 100 Chinese suppliers into its operations. Apple is unwavering in its commitment to maintaining a strong presence in the Chinese market. At one point, Apple even declared its intention to incorporate Chinese storage chips into its products, but it was met with warnings from senior U.S. officials. Apple has been conducting business in China for 30 years, with its first office in Beijing established back in 1993. Over the years, it has evolved into a significant player in the Chinese market, ranking among the most prominent foreign multinational corporations operating there. Apple places high value on China's extensive industrial ecosystem, and its operations are deeply entwined with the Chinese market. For instance, the manufacturing of iPhones, entrusted to Foxconn's factories in mainland China, involves key players like Luxshare Precision and BOE Technology. These suppliers provide various components and assembly services to Apple. Among the numerous Chinese component suppliers, only a handful are integrated into Apple's core supply chain. For instance, components such as screens, storage chips, and baseband chips are primarily imported to China for assembly. However, with BOE Technology supplying screens to Apple, it signifies Apple's growing recognition of the capabilities of Chinese companies and their potential to play a more significant role in Apple's core supply chain, particularly from a technological perspective. Apple is resolute in maintaining its foothold in the Chinese market. It once announced plans to source NAND flash storage from Yangtze Memory Technologies. YMTC, established in 2016, rapidly gained prominence, conquering critical technologies and elevating flash memory layers to an impressive 232. However, Apple's collaboration with YMTC never materialized due to U.S. intervention. Storage chips are pivotal components in smartphones, significantly impacting device performance and user experience, including boot speed, processing speed, and responsiveness. This applies not only to smartphones but also to servers, computers, smart vehicles, and various other tech domains that rely on storage chips. Historically, the global storage chip market has been dominated by foreign giants, particularly Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron Technology. These 3 companies collectively held the lion's share of the market, leaving minimal room for other manufacturers. Among them, Samsung stands as the world's largest storage chip producer, offering various chip types, including NAND flash, DRAM, and SSDs. Micron Technology, on the other hand, is the sole representative of the U.S. storage chip industry. Given the critical role of storage chips, the United States has been closely monitoring the development of Chinese manufacturers. Yangtze Memory Technologies was once placed on the U.S. Entity List, and companies like Changxin Memory Technologies and Fujian Jinhua Integrated Circuit faced U.S. restrictions. As Yangtze Memory Technologies strengthened its capabilities, it began attracting Apple's attention. However, just as Apple contemplated incorporating Chinese storage chips into its supply chain, the U.S. issued a warning, cautioning Apple that adopting Chinese storage chips would trigger rigorous scrutiny from the U.S. Congress. Chief McCall of the U.S. House Foreign Affairs Committee stated that this would assist China in acquiring knowledge and technology transfers. The U.S. stance is clear. While it permits Apple to purchase products from non-core Chinese component suppliers, it vehemently opposes the use of Chinese storage chips due to their critical importance. The United States' approach to safeguarding its technological leadership is well documented. It does not hesitate to utilize national power to interfere with private enterprises and restrict its own companies from exporting top-tier chip products, all in an effort to prevent competitors from overtaking it. It remains unwavering in this stance, even if it may harm the interests of American companies. Apple has devised its strategy for the Chinese market while diversifying its supply chain in response to U.S. demands. In addition to prohibiting Apple from using Yangtze Memory Technologies chips, the U.S. has encouraged Apple to relocate manufacturing to other regions to reduce concentration in a single location and prevent others from profiting. Consequently, we have witnessed Apple's increasing investments in countries like India and Vietnam, with manufacturing for products such as iPhones and AirPods shifting away from the Chinese market. Apple has made significant strides in the Indian manufacturing sector, with the initial batch of iPhone 15s also produced in India. It is highly likely that iPhones purchased by consumers originate from India. Moreover, Apple intends to bring back some chip orders, awaiting the completion of TSMC's factory in the United States. Apple is expected to manufacture a portion of its high-end chips domestically. This strategy is undeniably influenced by the U.S. government's push to reduce reliance on the Chinese market. Nevertheless, concurrently, Apple has leveraged its closed ecosystem and the strength of the App Store to garner support from numerous Chinese companies and consumers, amassing substantial wealth. This has prompted some to question whether Apple's conduct in the Chinese market can be characterized as imperialism. In response to a series of unjust actions by the U.S. government, major U.S. chip giants like Intel, Qualcomm, and Nvidia have expressed their opposition to the White House. They have emphasized the significance of the Chinese market and have urged the Biden administration to reconsider its policies, aligning them with economic fundamentals. However, these efforts have yielded limited results. Recently, there has been a turning point in the U.S.-China chip dispute, with Huawei's new product suggesting a resounding victory for China. The United States no longer exhibits its previous arrogance, and Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo even announced continued exports of chips to China. Raimondo recently embarked on a 4-day state visit to China, during which Huawei unexpectedly unveiled a new smartphone equipped with domestically produced chips. This announcement garnered significant attention from both domestic and international media. Analysts suggest that this could be a show of strength by China to the U.S. delegation, indicating that any sanctions against China will not lead to compromise but instead stimulate the potential of Chinese companies to develop alternatives to American technology. In this context, it remains unclear whether the United States can persist without admitting defeat. Therefore, American companies may need to recognize that sanctions and similar measures are no longer effective when it comes to China. China has already demonstrated its ability to develop chips independently. The United States initially imposed sanctions on China in the field of manufacturing, such as lithography machines. Today, Chinese companies have not only established research capabilities but also manufacturing capabilities. Although China still lags behind the United States in some areas, considering China's vast market, it has the potential to drive the development of the entire industry chain. At that point, U.S. companies may need to realize that they should not meekly return to the Chinese market to seek a way to survive. After all, the U.S. has gradually come to understand one thing: sanctions and similar methods are no longer effective in this field when it comes to China. While McCall continues to appear resolute, stating that the U.S. will not include the most cutting-edge chips when selling to China, he has lost the previous arrogance. After all, 20 years ago, the United States did not anticipate that China would develop the J-20 fighter jet, let alone envision China's naval electromagnetic catapult aircraft carrier following the footsteps of the U.S. Ford class. All of this has gradually led the U.S. to realize one thing: sanctions against China are no longer effective.